I've been fixing the chairs inside of our house lately, and the reason why I've been fixing it is that they have a wiggly back, and I fixed one chair earlier, but I'm doing the next one on video so you can see what's going on. So, to start fixing the chair, this one in particular has a wiggly back. You want to check on the bottom first and make sure there are no screws holding in the back, and don't want to remove any screws that are holding the bottom together. Leave those be. Anyway, then if there are no screws there, you just start wiggling like so. Now I would normally sit like this because it gives you a good angle to start wiggling. And you don't want to just push in one direction too hard, because if you push steady in one direction, it'll snap the back, but you just want to wiggle back and forth. Like if you've ever removed a post from the garden, you want to wiggle it back and forth until it comes loose from the dirt. Another thing you can do if these individual pieces aren't connected to this other than via glue is you can start wiggling this back and forth gently as much as you can. You don't want, well, not as much as you can, because if you do too much, it can snap it. But you just start wiggling these back and forth and go across them. You're kind of going like this on it, because it's kind of like the same thing you're doing to here, where you're wiggling it back and forth. So you keep doing that for a while. Don't be surprised if this takes a long time if you're just wiggling it. Probably took me 10 minutes to get the last one at the very least. Depending on how loose it was when you started working and just how well the chair was constructed, it may take longer. But in general, I would not take the back off of a chair unless it's really wiggly to start with, because it's a lot of work. But anyway, so yes, you just keep wiggling, just pulling, trying to get it loose. And you can pull up with some force, but just as always, be careful not to snap it, because that defeats the point. But even if you do, let's say, snap off one of these rungs right there or something, it's not the end of the world. It's not preferable, but it's not the end of the world. You can glue it back in place, and it'll keep working and doing its job. Anyway. So just like that, we got the chair disassembled. So when you're disassembling, try and make sure to align the spokes, you could say, of the chair back, so you know which one goes in which hole. So you can, when you're putting it back together, you know what's what. So the first thing you want to do is take these and sand them off. Like so. And you just keep doing that until they're smooth. So I'll just do that for a bit. So you just keep going all the way around it. It does take a while to do, but it helps for when you're slotting it all back together. It comes back together nice and smooth. So I would continue doing that for a good while. And then another thing you do is, if you bought sandpaper, which hopefully you have a fair amount of, you want to take a little bit and put it inside the hole and sand out the hole. Now, it's not going to be as easy to sand out the hole, but you want to get in there with the sandpaper and sand it out at least a little. You're not going to be able to do as nice a job sanding out the hole as you do the spokes, but just get in there and try and make sure it's mostly smooth. And you just do that for all of them until you've gone through every single hole. And do the same thing for the top. Sand out these holes. And you just keep sanding out all the holes until everything's smooth and you can stick your finger in there and it feels smooth to the touch. And you just keep doing that, and once you're done, you're ready for the next step. So the next step is to put some painter's tape on the bottom. You don't have to do this if the chair top doesn't stick through, but if the chair top does stick through in a part, you want to put some painter's tape on the bottom to make sure the glue you use, in this case we are using Gorilla Glue, doesn't go through. So you put that on the bottom here to act as a seal for the glue. Don't know how well you can see that, but you do that on one side, and in this case the other side as well. So it'll help make sure the glue doesn't go all over the place. You may have to check it while the glue is drying to make sure there's not glue leaking all over the place. I generally like to put some paper towel on the floor just to make sure you don't end up with glue sticking to the floor, which that's annoying to clean up. Much easier just to clean up some paper towels. So the next thing you want to do is dampen down the holes, because we're using Gorilla Glue, and it says to make sure the surfaces are damp, not wet, like you don't want to pour water in there or something, but just damp so it's not dry. So you want to go through every single hole and do that. Cleans out any loose wood or glue that was sanded off while you were sanding, and makes sure the glue gets a nice solid connection. And so on and so forth. So for this next part, I needed an extra set of hands, so my dad came to help because he is nice. So he's holding it in place so I can do the gluing. You want a nice even coat around the entire rim. Don't worry that much about glue going, or you don't want to, because you can usually clean it off pretty easily later. I'll talk about that more in a bit, but you want to go over every single one. If you can do it cleaner, that's all the better, but if you are messy, don't worry too much. Just keep on going. Nice even coat around the entire rim to make sure it gets locked in place. Okay, almost done. Okay, so now that those are glued in place, you want to start putting the holes back in place. This is the right side, right? No, it isn't. Of course, I have everything laid out perfectly, and I can't remember which way thing goes where. Or it is, I just put it in the wrong way. Now, I used a good bit too much glue in some spots, so if that happens, don't worry too much, because you can just use a box cutter to clean it off. But another reason why you need an extra set of hands is because they like to shift around, so when you're setting it in place, the extra person can help hold them so they don't tip over. Put them back in place. Make sure they're nice slotted in. See, they got mixed up. There. Okay, now they're in order. You want to wipe off any excess glue that spurted out of the hole just to help clean things up, so it's not as much of a mess. Because the Gorilla Glue, I think, can triple in size, so that can be quite messy. Wipe all these spots off. Make sure to have a nice big supply of paper towels, because you're going to go through a lot of them most likely. So you generally don't want the top completely dry when you're putting in position, because then you can wiggle it into place and make sure you have a nice solid connection. Oh, go that way. This is the part where you really need an extra set of hands. Wiggle that in. You generally want them to go, if you can, shove them farther down into the chair, because that's where they need the most strength. And then make sure they're aligned nice and properly. And once everything's in place, with this particular chair, I'm going to take it and prop it up against the wall here so it remains in the right position. And then I take some paper towels and put them underneath the holes here to absorb any glue that drips out the bottom. Sometimes they like to stay, sometimes they don't. Then again, take some paper towels, mop up any excess glue that squirted out. Looks like not much. Double check. Okay. And then you just let it sit and set. You can clamp it, but the disadvantage of clamping it is it pulls the chair backwards and tries to bow the back of the chair that way. So you need another clamp going from here to here. If I were to tighten this, you could see, so I'll pull it out just for a moment. Don't know if you can see it, but when you clamp it, it pulls it that way a little bit. Whereas if you get rid of the clamp and just lean it up against something like so, it will make your chair a little more upright. And it's just simpler. So we let it sit overnight, and the glue is hardened now, but since we use Gorilla glue, some of the Gorilla glue will come out. You can see a little bit here, and even though we put the painter's tape, a little bit came out, but it came out in a way that it's easy to clean off. So you take a box cutter and you just carefully cut off the extra foamy glue, which usually comes off pretty clean. And then you want to take off the painter's tape. You may end up with some glue on the bottom, which happens, but don't worry about it. If it looks a little ugly, just take some sandpaper to it, or depending, you can use a box cutter or some other scraper to tidy it up. But yeah, you just remove the rest of the glue using your box cutter, or sometimes you can even snap it off by hand. But you just keep doing that till the chair looks good enough, and then you're set to go. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.